Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to a special feature. Welcome once again today. My guest today is one of my early guests here in Evans Africa. He was here a few months ago, about 3 months ago, actually, I think it was. My guest today will be Evans Larbigh, who is a small-scale commercial farmer based in Ghana. And we're going to talk about farming, what's going on in Ghana, the impact of the pandemic on farming, concerns about the food supply chain, what's happening there, and developments with his farm, his business, and what's happening there. So before I get started in that, and I bring him in here in just a moment, let's see, we got a few folks in the chat already. Morton is there. Yes, there are folks out there. Morton, a few of us here. Lynn is also here. Gareth is there. And Eric is just tuned in. Anthony, well, thanks, folks, for joining us all on the channel. In just a moment here, for those who don't remember, I had Evans on here a few months ago, one of my first guests, a very interesting, fascinating fellow. We talked a lot about the situation he's dealing with in Uganda, or not, excuse me, Uganda, in Ghana. Got to be careful there, faux pas. The situation he's dealing with in Ghana as a small-scale commercial farmer, the challenges, people concerned about the pandemic, about getting sick, about getting infected, the impact on production. And we promised to bring him back on the channel when he had an update about what's actually happening with his channel. So I thought that today would be a good time to bring him on. And so in just a moment here, I'm going to bring Evans on. And I want to welcome everybody. There's Jacques. I see Jacques. And I also see the Wizards in there. All right, folks, without further ado, let me get him up here. And there he is on the screen. Evans, go ahead and turn your mic on. Welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Akwaba.
Good to see you again. Good to see you.
Akwaba.
So how is the COVID? Akwaba, Medasi. It's nice to see you again. How is the COVID situation over there?
It's a little crazy at this point. People are acting kind of crazy. It's a little bit out of control with we have different level of governance here. So we have the national government, we've got the federal government, we got local governments, and each of them have different responsibilities. So what happens here is that we get some confusion taking place about who's responsible for what, who's to blame, who's supposed to do things. And so it's all a bit of a mess here on this end. So a little bit frustrating, Evans. How is it on your end?
We keep recording new cases. It's getting more scary. The government are putting all the right measures in place. But commercially activities are going on, especially in the agriculture sector. We are allowed to go to our farm. We are allowed to grow. We are allowed to do a lot of stuff. But the ordinary citizen is not really going well here. We keep recording new cases each and every day. We are hoping for the best. We are hoping for the best down here. But what can we say? We still need to manage and find a way to do our normal businesses day in and day out, especially we as farmers. So we can't complain. We are in it. COVID came to stay with us, so we need to find a way to live with it, just to avoid the spread, and then take the precautionary measure that the government and the WHO has put in out there for us to follow. And so that is what we are doing here. I am just coming from my farm, so you can see me with my hat and all that.
I love the hat. The hat's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, Evans, I have to say this. You know, there are politicians the world over, and they've been driving many of us around the planet absolutely bonkers with their statements, with their misinformation, with their confusion, with their telling us to rely on science, and then they don't rely on science and making capricious decisions. I have to say that listening to a farmer in Ghana, I just heard the clearest statement of all.
Yeah.
COVID came here. It's with us. We have to find a way to live with it. Wow. That is what you just said. That is the most clear statement I've heard about COVID-19 in 4 months. Thank you.
Thank you. So with the COVID situation in Ghana, we are even suspecting a partial lockdown soon, because here in Ghana, we are in our election year, a very critical year for the nation. And in the same situation, we are also doing a new voter register. In the same situation, we have our final year students in the university, in the colleges, writing exams. In the same year, we are going to have our presidential, parliamentary, and district election. So this is a very crucial year for us as Ghanaians. And we are looking at this COVID in a different angle. How do we live with it? How do we how do we make sure that we go through all these activities in this COVID situation? And so the government has rolled out a lot of policies. I've been reading a lot online, but every day we are hearing new cases, especially in the capital city. And so this is putting a lot of pressure on the agriculture sector, especially in terms of labor. People are not ready to go to the farm with the fear of getting affected. And this is affecting our food supply chain. Obviously, what we have in stock is almost done because we dependent on it. But we farmers need to still go back to our farm and find a way to produce more to sustain our economy. And so that is the major challenge we are facing now. Aside that, I can also say there are a lot of intervention coming in from other organizations to help us, especially in the agriculture sector. So we are hoping that with these new interventions coming in, we can be able to scale up our activity, scale up our production, and also get used to the new technology that you mentioned, so that we can improve productivity and increase yield and income. That is what we are doing at the moment.
So if I understood you correctly, at the moment, Ghana still doesn't have a lockdown of any sort, but you're concerned that it might be coming. Has the government given an indication that it might do a lockdown, or is this just what people are afraid of?
Yeah, we should expect a partial lockdown soon because we are not really happy with the number of cases that we are recording as a nation.
Well, to put things in perspective, Ghana, a country of 31 million people, has most recent reported number was 25,252 cases with 139 fatalities attributed to it. While it seems like a lot, that's actually not that much. You compare it just to, say, malaria or some other infectious disease. Nonetheless, it's concerning. I'm not trying to downplay the virus and the importance of it, but by comparison, South Africa is now getting half that many cases reported every single day, between 12 and 15,000 new cases of COVID-19 in South Africa alone, a country that's not that much larger. Well, it's about twice the size of Ghana population-wise, and they're getting half your cases every day. So Ghana must be doing something right, or West Africa is getting a break because it has such a young population. Maybe that's the reason.
What I think we are doing right is the measures that we have put in place, the contact tracing,
yes,
and then the enhanced contact tracing. That is what is really helping us. So you could also record that our recovery rate is high. Mm-hmm. So if we are able to give ourselves another partial lockdown for a period, then that means we can put the whole virus under control in terms of the contact tracing and then enhanced contact tracing.
So from your perspective, do you think that people in general, I know you can't speak for 31 million Ghanaians, but for yourself and those around you, are people in favor of more stringent controls, or are they comfortable where the levels are at now?
I think now the education is sinking in the mind of all the citizens. People are now getting to know that the virus is real. And so they are following the measure, the protocol that have been laid out. I think more can be done. We can also, as a nation, know that this virus is real and it is in to stay with us. So whatever our president, together with the Ministry of Health and the World Health is saying that we should do or we should follow, we need to follow to ensure that we live with the virus in a more friendly way, where we will record lesser than we are recording now, because that is the only challenge that we are facing as a nation.
No, absolutely. But let's talk a little bit about government interventions. When we spoke before, there wasn't much in the way of interventions from the government to help out small businesses, medium enterprises, and especially farmers. There have been some interventions since then, yes or no?
Oh, they have been.
Can you tell us a little bit about those interventions?
Yes, please. With the government, they have even given us a loan to small-scale businesses for us to scale up our businesses. I'm a beneficiary of such intervention, and so it's cutting across. People are getting it. People are coming out to say this is a good way. Another thing the government is doing is that they are supporting us with input supplies, such as fertilizers, improved seed, and other things, which I'm also a beneficiary of it. Others are certifying. They are also giving us the PPEs to protect ourselves, even on the farm. Mm-hmm. What they are also doing is that they are making sure that health workers are closer to us on the farm in case of any suspicion. then they can come on board and send us to the isolated centers. The government is also building more of the isolation centers, which is also helping.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with the rural development, they are saying that if you are a small scale business and you need to scale up, these are the protocol you need to follow to get access to the funding or loan. We've seen other corporate organizations, international organizations also coming on board to support the government in this same intervention. And so with these few interventions, it is good for us because that is what we need. A farmer like myself need the capital, the seed, the fertilizers, and then to scale up production. So I think those are the few things that we are benefiting from us at now.
So are they providing grants or loans? Does that help? I mean, or are they actually providing material support?
Well, for now, they are providing loans for a long term with no interest to farmers. So at least it's a 5-year term loan with no interest, just to support as a smallholder farmer to support your farming activities.
Now, that makes a lot of sense to me. That's an argument that I've made all along, is for small and medium enterprises and also for the informal sector. Although you got to be careful about the informal sector, it's difficult. But if governments can make grants or loans, more importantly, I think loans are better than grants, but make loans that are no interest or low interest, like the World Bank is giving 1% loans, which essentially is no interest because inflation is higher than 1% everywhere you're at. So that basically you're paying back less money than you borrow. But no, that's wise. That is that proved to be beneficial and helpful for your business thus far? And
oh yeah, it is. It is very, very beneficial. I'm a beneficiary of it, so I can testify that it's really going well. With that, I've been able to even expand my production and land access. I'm now cultivating over 50 acres of farmland, and I'm doing vegetables, maize. I have a snail farm. I'm doing fish, catfish, and tilapia. And then these funds go into that production. It's helping me a lot as a farmer. And I think I recommend the government for bringing such intervention in this critical moment. There's more room for improvement. I will prove it. Let them still continue supporting and then helping us, because that we are the only way. The agriculture sector is the only surviving way in this COVID situation. And so once they are putting that funds there for us to scale up our activities and production, I recommend them. It's kudos to them. They have done well.
excellent. Well, that's good news to hear. I can't say the same thing about most governments around the world, particularly in Africa. It's not the case. Most governments aren't taking those steps to help out farmers or small businesses and medium enterprises. Oh, I didn't realize, Evans, that you do aquaculture as well. You said you've got tilapia and catfish.
Yeah, I do. I cut across all the value chain. That is the activity that I'm doing now. And so as I'm talking to you, the government have seen my input, and they have even selected me to go for the National Best Youth Farmer coming in December. And so that is a plus to my career. I appreciate the effort that they know that there's a young man also in the system trying to change the narrative. Gone are the days in Ghana, farming was seen as for a poor man's job. It was just for the poor. Yeah. But now we are changing the dynamism. We are changing the scope. We are making sure that more youth go into the agriculture sector. We are making sure that even if you graduate from uni, when you get a piece of land to farm on, you should see it as a business, not as a layman's work or a hobby.
Well, Evans, congratulations on being selected for that Young Farmers. That's quite a coup, a feather in your cap. So salute you. Well done. Excellent.
Thank you.
I also like the fact that you've made a point here that in the past people think of farming in the terms of subsistence farming. It's something that poor, illiterate, uneducated people do. Whereas agriculture is actually something that entrepreneurs can get involved in and turn nothing into something. And that's kind of what you've done here. Now, I will share this about your aquaculture. There's a reason why tilapia has become so popular in the global marketplace. It's not because it tastes good. It's bland. People love tilapia because you can season it with anything. It'll taste like whatever you want. And it grows, and they grow fast too. That's the other thing, it grows very fast. But tilapia is an African fish. Now catfish, I love catfish. That's some good stuff there. Catfish has a very distinct taste. Do you eat your own catfish and tilapia?
Yeah. Why not? Why not? I love them both. So I mean, it's
So
Yeah.
these government interventions, does it also, is there any effort by the government to make fertilizer more affordable or make it free or to get more imported? Because I know that for some farms, fertilizer is an important input in the process.
Yeah. So just last week, I was selected to be part of the board of directors from the Ministry of Agri to review policies on what you just mentioned. So I did stand in for the youth in farming and the smallholder farmers like myself. And I told the government that in this crucial time, the only thing they can do is to give us free fertilizers and then improve seed, which they have started doing. So today we went for a workshop to verify, and then people were giving testimony that they have been able to get their fertilizers and then seed. So it is something that they are doing.
So the government of Ghana is now providing free fertilizer to farmers.
The farmers. The
Wow,
farmers.
that's interesting. A few years back, Malawi did the same thing, but it wasn't sustainable. The government couldn't afford it. And when they froze the exchange rate for the kwacha, the national currency, and artificially set it at 160 to the dollar, they suddenly found themselves in a lot of trouble because they couldn't pay for it anymore. It was too expensive because most of fertilizer, of course, is from petroleum based off that. So I hope that Ghana doesn't find itself in a similar boat. But I don't know. Do you happen to know, is there a fertilizer plant in Ghana? I know you've got the Jubilee oil field now, and they're producing oil. So I don't know if they produce
Yeah.
fertilizer or if it's imported.
So even to add, what the government is doing is that they are working with the fertilizer producers through the district assembly and then through the assembly common fund, where they are buying the fertilizer directly to the farmers at the district level, at the regional level, and at the national level. And so it's good. It's a good intervention the government is doing. I must recommend our government. They are really doing their best in this situation. They are really doing well. They are really doing well.
Well, that's encouraging to hear, Evans, because I can't say the same thing about most of my government at the local, state, or national level. And I'm not angry. I'm not angry with my government for the reason a lot of people in the media and on the political
Oh, yeah.
left are upset. They're upset because they want more control and more totalitarian, stamping down of rights. I'm actually angry because the way they've approached the whole thing, instead of protecting the people most vulnerable, we've gone at it completely differently, which is not working out so well. So it's good to hear someone that's happy with what their government's doing. It's also encouraging to hear that. Now, let me ask this question. When you interact with the government for agriculture, do you do that through the Ministry of Agriculture? Is there a local extension agent somewhere you go in office that you talk to people and express your concerns or get resources?
Because of my activities with the government, I always work through the regional directors and then the national director. And then I have the extension service at the district level. I'm working with them on my field. And so I have that relationship and coordination with them. Anything that I'm doing, I'm trying to involve the government. Because in as much as I'm doing my commercial farming, I also have a responsibility of standing in for the youth and then especially also women in agriculture. I'm an advocate for women in agriculture because my mom is also a farmer.
Does she own her own farm or does she lease a farm? How does that work?
Oh no, she's still in active farming, but she is more in the retail market. So she go around to buy farm produce from smallholder farmers and sell it as a retailer.
Okay. Where are you at right now? It sounds like you're standing next to a highway. I hear a lot of traffic.
Yeah, my farm is not far from the roadside. That is another beautiful thing. It's not far from the roadside, and so there is a road just by where I'm standing. It's a highway.
Well, I suppose that's kind of handy because you've got that line of communication. You can get your products right to the road and transport them out pretty quickly instead of being way back.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that works out pretty well. Right. Sure. So you talked about some of the things we talked before the show about some things hampering agriculture.
Yeah.
Some of that I believe would imagine people afraid to go back to work or constraints. What are some of the things that are that are hampering production, and what are the impacts?
So
let's talk about what's hampering first. Then we'll talk about the impacts of what's happening.
Okay, so with the impact, like I just said now, with the impact of this COVID, even in my district, we have recorded one death, a woman about 80 years. So the whole district is in a panic, in fear. They don't want to go to work. I mean, they feel like if one has gotten it, then its likelihood is spreading across the various districts. So a lot of farmers are losing interest in starting their farm. And so the laborers too that we have been working with on the field are not coming again. That is the impact it's having on our our sector now. We are losing the labors, and then the precautionary measure. They say we should wear nose mask. Is very expensive. Now the nose mask they are selling it at I think half $5. That is quite expensive. So an ordinary farmer cannot even buy it. Yeah, people are making business out of it, and every day there's a new price on the nose mask. Trust me. So it's putting fear. People are not showing interest in buying them. So that is another impact this is having on us. So, I mean,
So
it's bad.
the recommendation is that you wear a mask, but the availability and the affordability of mask is a serious problem.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You
Right.
feel
So,
like I've put my own on. Yeah.
mhm.
You have to wear it everywhere. Even on the farm, I encourage my workers, my laborers to put on nose mask and observe the social distance the government have given to us. And so for my side, it's working. But other people, I go to other farms to visit their activities and what they are doing. And surprisingly, it's not really going well. It's not encouraging at all. It's not encouraging at all.
Now, of course, people that work in agriculture are touching things all the time, whether they're planting
Yeah.
or pruning or picking or catching
Yeah.
or slicing.
Yeah.
So, do you make available hand washing stations and soap and things like that so people can frequently wash their hands? Is that something that's available on your farms?
Yeah. Yeah. I do have all of that on my farm. So even before you get to the field to start, I even have the thermometer to check your temperature.
Oh, wow.
I have. Oh yeah, I do. I want to observe. I don't want to lose any of my labor, so I'm putting all those measures in place for them for their safety and well-being. Because without them, then I have no farm, I have no activity, and I have no business.
No, that's smart and forward thinking. I remember several years
Yeah.
back, probably about 15 or 20 years ago, 15 or so years ago, Anglo American Corporation, the big mining company in South Africa, started providing free HIV testing and counseling to its employees. And people were asking, why would they do that? What's that all about? Well, it's just smart business practice. You can't afford to have your labor force become ill and fall out of work and not be able to work. So, maybe it's compassionate, but that really doesn't matter at the end of the day from a business standpoint. You've got to have a productive workforce. And if your workforce is getting sick and it's something you could have helped prevent, then it really don't do your business any good. So it sounds like you've got some smart business practices there to keep your labor force healthy as well as you can.
And then with the market accessibility, another impact that this COVID is having is our market. We are losing our market. Our market women are not ready to go to the market. So farmers' produce are being stopped. Some are even recording post-harvest losses because there's no market. There's no woman you're produced to because they are all in fear and panic. So our market looks empty. It's just a few places that you could see commercial market activities going on. So this is also putting a lot of negative effect on our agriculture marketing side. But we are hoping things turn around soon. I mean, we can't complain. As I said, it's with us. It's going to live with us. Who knows? Maybe forever. But we need to find a way to live with it and make business and then produce and even feed our people. So that is what we are working on each and every day.
Well, actually, you raise an important issue there. You've done it again, where you're talking about the fact that the virus is here. It's not going away. As much as they want to pretend it's going to go away, and the measures that governments have taken are going to cause it to go away, it's not. It's in human populations. We're going to have to find a way to live with it and avoid it as best as possible. But you've also touched on something else here without actually explicitly stating it. Let me get into that. So concerns I've had from the outset when it came to lockdown and restricting people's movement is my concern about food security and about the food supply chain. We've already seen it here in the United States. Just a couple of months ago, I would go to the supermarket and I couldn't get any French fries because the potatoes were being dumped in the fields because nobody was digging them up. And so we already saw that. We've seen a supply disruption here in the United States in meat, poultry in particular, because poultry plants were shut down, the abattoirs were shut down. And there's all sorts of disruptions in the food supply chain. The United States, the world's largest food producer, also imports a lot of food because people like things from around the world, bananas, cocoa, things like that. We've experienced disruptions in that supply chain already. But almost no one in America is in danger of going hungry at this point. But that's a different story in other parts of the world. Ghana can't afford to import a lot of its food supply, so you produce most of your food inside the country. Is
Yeah.
there a concern on your part as a small scale commercial farmer that there will be a disruption in the food supply and people are going to start going hungry at some time?
Yes. Yes. There's a possibility of us going that direction because we are not getting a lot of farmers producing. And one thing the government failed to do, I think this virus took us by surprise. Nobody expected it. But our government, I'm always recommending, I'm always advocating that we need to store more our at the buffer so that in terms of this crisis we can depend on, and then we need to encourage our people to eat our local food, what we produce as farmers. You understand? So we are looking at the whole value chain, how we can scale it up. But looking at the situation and the production level as at now, I think there will be a bit of that if care is not taken. We will go on that lane very soon.
Now, of course, Evans, with the restrictions in place, also people's fears, some of which are very genuine, some are also a bit
Mm.
overhyped. But with fears
Mm.
and people doing less, human activity, less economic activity, that has an impact on income streams. So, if I could ask for your farm, be it farms, has that had an impact? Have you seen a reduction in income to the farm, and are you having difficulty getting by, or are
Yeah.
you able to maintain your income?
No, I'm not able to maintain my income. There have been a little bit of reduction, which is not so good. But all come back to the fact that the virus is in. It has affected our market. It has affected my customers I supply to. It has affected businesses where they also get their money and all that. And so, as a farmer, as a businessman, I know things will not go the right way at this moment. But through it, I'm able to manage myself very well, manage my workers very well, because we all know the situation that we are in. We are not in normal times, and then we can't afford to lose the human labor. We know how to bring our economy back. We know how to increase, how do you call it, our income and then revenue. But then when a labor is gone, we cannot bring that life back. So that is what it is at the moment.
Well, in the chat here, very quickly, I should mention to you, we have Erica. Erica is a lady in South Africa who grew up in the Belgian Congo, in Katanga province, Belgian, who grew up there, and then was able to flee just in time, like the last train out of Katanga when things really went badly. In fact, growing up, she played with the daughter of the breakaway secession Prime Minister, Moises Chombe. Anyway, so she got out. She later moved to South Africa, and she was a dairy farmer until not all that long ago. So she's been a farmer, so she knows. But she said that what they found is that folks on the farm who are more skilled and higher earners are the ones who contracted HIV first. Not comparing the two, but making the point is that they were very vulnerable and they died from HIV, which meant that all the training and all the skill was gone. It was all wasted. It was all for nothing. Not to mention human cost, but also from a practical economic standpoint, if your best workers are the ones who get ill and aren't available, that has an impact on you. And I imagine that's a concern you have on your side too. Because you train your farmers, you teach them, you educate them, you share with them, and we pour all that effort and resource into it. And if people get sick and die unnecessarily, that's not a good thing for your business.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. I totally agree with you on that. So we need to protect our human resource more in this situation. We need to protect our human resource. Obviously, as for the economy, no matter the effect of COVID on our economy, I'm sure there's a way to bring the economy back, but not the life that we are losing out of the COVID. So I think I agree with you on that. I agree with you on that.
It's very difficult. I mean, that's the thing that gets lost on people. And yes, I see this now in the political climate going around the world. Get rid of this, get rid of that, defund that. These things aren't necessary. Business people are just greedy and selfish. And no. Running a business is a lot more complicated than simply sitting back and walking around with a cane or a really cool hat like you've got and telling people what to do and just collecting the money at the end of the day. You've got to plan. You've got to be strategic. You've got to think about security. You've got to think about inputs, credit, bills you got to pay, salaries, a reasonable salary for people. All of that comes into play. And so I really appreciate when you get an opportunity to talk to a small scale business person like yourself, because you get all that. I mean, that's something you understand. So when you hear people say things like that, about greedy business people, what are your thoughts? You ever hear that?
Come again with the last one.
I said that. Does anyone ever? Do you ever hear anyone Do you ever hear anyone have a conversation say, "Oh, those business people are just greedy," or "Those rich farmers are just greedy, and they don't care. They just sit back." Do you ever hear that? And if so, if you've ever heard that, what are your thoughts when someone says that?
Like I said, to us as Ghanaians, Africans, we always see a farmer as the uneducated poor. But now the narrative is changing because uh, when I hear people say that, I say, no, maybe you are not in for business. You are not ready to be on the field to work and make money out of what you are producing on your field. Because trust me, now agribusiness is the order of the day. And then agriculture is having the potential to turn economies of country around. And so we need to make sure that we are at the front there, we need to position ourselves well so that we can also support others. When I hear people making those arguments, I just laugh because they don't know what goes into it. They don't know the effort, they don't know the sacrifices, they don't know the strategy, they don't know what we put in our operation and then our production and activities. They don't know. They have no idea.
Absolutely. So for folks just tuning in, you're listening to Chris Wyatt Africa on the Indaba Africa channel. And today we have a special feature with my guest, Evans Larbigh, who is a small-scale commercial farmer in Ghana, and where he runs Be It Farms. That's his operation. And he was a guest on my program about 3 months ago, one of my very first guests on the program on a Saturday. So today's a special feature. We're updating the current situation with the pandemic in Ghana, where he lives, and talking about the challenges. He's had some very complimentary things to say about the government of Ghana and its interventions to help farmers and small business people. We're also going to talk here shortly about some new developments on his farm, what's going on there. But at the moment, we've just been discussing the challenges that farmers are confronted with. Now, this applies not just in Ghana, but it applies in Liberia, in Nigeria, in Ohio, in South Africa, wherever you're at, all these things. Now, when Evans was on here last time, we talked about, we're not going to get into it, but we talked about one of the challenges that people in Ghana face in farming about land tenure, which is something when people think about land tenure, they think of Zimbabwe and South Africa, but land tenure is an issue all over the world, and it is so to this day. In countries that have done successful land reform, like South Korea or Peru, their economies have blossomed in part because of that reform and the ability of people to have tenure and property where they can actually borrow against it because they have collateral. But we're not really going to get into that discussion today unless Evans wants to go that direction. But what I want to do now is change the conversation a little bit, Evans. Let's talk about some of the new developments going on with Be It Farms. What's happened since we last spoke?
Okay, so first of all, the new development is I've gotten 100-acre contract for dairy production. That's the first development.
Did you say dairy production?
Yeah, dairy production.
Okay, Erica, are you listening? Erica ran off to cook dinner. She said she's still listening. Erica, listen close. He's talking about a dairy in Ghana.
So we've secured 100-acre of land for dairy production. We are looking at going a commercial way. We are also trying to bring our cattle from South Africa for the production. So I think that is the new development. Another development is that I am going into big time cashew. I have 200 acres of land for cashew. And another development is the 50 acre I told you about is solely for vegetables. And I've employed a solar panel system, new irrigation, drip irrigation. And I have my farm house. I have all those materials that are good for new modern way of farming. And so those are the three critical improvements since we last spoke. And then the good news is that I was supposed to host the Africa Smallholder Farmers Summit in November, which at the end of every year, I bring farmers from their farm to meet the various value chain actors for us to discuss and have a dialogue on experiences that we have shared on the farm. And so this year, Kenya has come up to host the second edition of the Africa Smallholder Farmers Summit. So if all things go well by November, we are sending farmers from here to Kenya to have one of the biggest agribusiness summits. We are also looking at option of going the virtual conference if the virus don't allow us to have it in the physical framework. And so those are the new development coming up now.
Well, let me ask you this question about the cashews. Now, cashews are nuts. That's what we're talking about, right? The nuts.
I've increased my. Yeah, you have the floor.
No, I was saying, let's talk about cashews. Cashews, you're talking about the nuts, right? The nuts that people eat, cashews.
Sure.
Okay, so I'm not an expert in cashew farming because I've never grown them, but nuts typically grow in trees, do they not? So is that the case with cashews? They grow in trees or bushes?
Sorry, the line is breaking. Can you take that again? The last one.
That's fine. No, what I said is that cashews, do nuts typically grow in trees? Do cashews grow in trees or bushes?
No, it's grown on trees. Yeah.
All right, so if you're expanding cashews, is there a period of time, like for instance, if I were to plant apple trees or pear trees, I can't get production for 5 or 6 years. Is there a lag? Will there be several years before you can produce the cashews, and this is just an investment in the future?
But yeah. It's a possibility. Yeah, sure.
Okay, so you're not going to get cashews this year because you're just planting the trees, correct?
Yeah.
Okay,
Exactly.
gotcha. Now let me ask a question about the dairy. What you said you're getting cattle from South Africa. Which breeds are you getting? You getting Holsteins, Jerseys, Guernseys?
I'm now putting the whole team together. So I'm looking at having a consultation with people in that business in South Africa, where they can come on board with their expertise for me to get the best breed for this project. So it's something I'm working on. So maybe if someone is out there in South Africa listening to me with those can have kind of contact, let's have a conversation on it because that's my new project.
Actually, maybe we could put you in touch with Erica, who was a dairy farmer, and she may be able to offer some advice. I don't know if she's willing to do that or happy to do it or not, but she did ask a question about whether you're going to do cheese production because she's an expert in cheese production as well.
Wow. I would love that a lot. I would love that. I would love cheese production in Ghana. Trust me. I would love that.
All right. Well, there you go, Erica. So, yeah, maybe we'll make a connection here. You can maybe offer some advice or some consulting there for Evans and see how it goes. But why are you moving into the dairy business? Is there demand for dairy products in Ghana? Looks like we're having trouble with his connection again. And Erica says she can't help. Come on, come back. Mobile networks, ladies and gentlemen, not the best. Evans is on his mobile out there on the edge of his farm because he was working. Hopefully, he'll get back in here. I'm not so sure what happened to him. But you're listening to Indaba Africa, Chris Wyatt Africa channel here with my special guest today, Evans Larbigh, who is a small-scale commercial farmer in Ghana. And it looks like his network has dropped off. I don't know if he ran out of airtime or if the network shut down or what's going on. But anyway, so while we're talking about it, yeah, he's got some new developments there. He just talked about, it looks like he's left the meeting, so I will send him the link again to make sure he's got it. Give me a second here. While I do that, I want to make sure he can get back in the conversation. So I just got to send him the link. I'm sure he has it, but just being sure, that's all. I want to make sure the guy's got it so we can get him back in here, copy the link. I will send it to him again. And then there we go. All right, so hopefully he can get back in. But in the meantime, while he's out, let me talk about some of the developments he just brought up. So Edu just had a question. I'll get that in a second. He's talking about he's expanding into dairy. That's a fascinating topic. Having been a dairy farmer myself, small-scale dairy farmer, I'm happy to talk to him about that. I think that'll be interesting. And Erica, of course, also a former dairy farmer, says she's interested in helping. So that should be cool. And now cashews, of course, that can be very profitable. Cashews here in America are very expensive when you go to buy them. So somebody's making money. And then expanding his vegetable with another 50, he produces vegetables, another 50 acres of land there. So pretty cool. Now, EduTube says, Ghana, not South Africa related. I know Africa is on your heart. Ghana, sorry, another channel. SA my concern. Okay. Yeah, no, I cover all of Africa, folks. I realize that with so many of my subscribers and members being from South Africa or having interest in South Africa, that not all the topics in Africa are of interest. So, I mean, I can just look at my channel and watch video views just to get a feel for that. So, for instance, and I'm not surprised by this, but that's fine. Let me get here. So I'm looking at videos. I did a video on Sudan the other day, right? And I have 153 views. Am I heartbroken or disheartened? No, because I cover all of Africa and it was an important development, so I made a video. It took as much time and effort to make that as it did to make some videos in South Africa, and I get a much better return on my time, I should say. So for instance, the video that I did on that, just before that, I released that video, Cyril's Sad Songs, which now has almost 2,600 views. That's pretty good. And then I did Hotful with Ramaphosa, the National Coronavirus Command Council, and the ANC, and that one's 2,100 views. Now, if I was just doing it for views, it was all about views, then I wouldn't bother making the video on Sudan. But it's about engaging people, and so the channel's about Africa. So I appreciate that not everything is interesting to everybody in Africa. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But those of you who tune in, really appreciate it. So Erica says that oh, Morton was having a dig at Jimmy Carter, famous peanut farmer, probably the world's most famous peanut farmer. Erica says Guernsey cows are tops for butterfat Jersey, tough little cow. Well, unless something's happened genetically, Erica, Jerseys have a higher butterfat content than Guernseys, about 4.5% or something like that, is it not? Yeah, Holsteins are good for quantity. That's they produce a lot of milk. That's true. Gert Janse van Rensburg is the National Coronavirus Command Council. What is what? Edu, hello, welcome. Anyway, yeah, so it looks like we've lost Evans. Sorry about that, folks. Hopefully he can call back. I suspect he either ran out of airtime or his network went down, which is common. Look, it is Africa. There are challenges. Even here in the United States, we have power go out and lose networks from time to time. For instance, I just bought an uninterrupted power supply from APC to put on this system because I've had too many power fluctuations in the last couple of weeks. And so in order to avoid that, I've reverted to the way I used to be, like I'm back in Africa. Yanni popped in. Good to see you there, Yanni. Hello, if you're still here. Known as the Politburo. Yeah, they are the Politburo. Yeah, so like I said, we had Evans on here a few weeks back, or a few months ago, and he talked to us about his business, Be It Farms, B-E-I-T, like in Be It. Kind of clever. And he's involved in all sorts of things. Now, he talked about different parts of the value chain, and I didn't get a chance to really get into that part of the conversation with him as he dropped off. I was curious. And when you say the value chain, I mean, value chain is growing the stuff, then packaging it, then turning it into something else potentially. I mean, if you're taking, tomatoes, you turn it into tomato sauce or spaghetti sauce, and then you bottle it, produce it, and you sell it. That's the value chain as you go up. So I didn't know if he was actually talking about the value chain or if he just meant diversity in his agricultural production, which I think might have been the case. So if he gets back on here, we'll ask him that question. But anyway, in the meantime, let's see what else. Anybody have any questions about agriculture while we're on the topic, waiting for Evans to come back? He has mentioned a conference that's scheduled for November in Kenya for young agricultural entrepreneurs, and he's hoping to go to that. Also, he's been selected for an event in Ghana, which is impressive. Good to hear. Now, one of the things I want to get into was some of the constraints that he faces as a farmer. Obviously, we talked a little bit about this when he addressed concerns about the health and welfare of his workforce and some of the interventions that he does in order to keep his workforce healthy, including having washing stations in the fields and back at the sheds and such, so that people can wash their hands. Because, of course, as you can imagine, if you're involved in agriculture, you're touching lots of things. You're picking things, you're digging things, you're moving things, you're touching tools, you're sharing tools, and you're around other people. So it can be quite contact-full event being involved in agriculture. So there you go. Anyway, by the way, I also just debuted another video. This is a video, I'm thinking of making a separate channel just for my USA-specific videos. I'll still leave them on Indaba Africa because I know people in South Africa and other places are curious about the U.S. I'll leave them there, but I'm going to make a channel, I think, devoted just to the U.S. political scene, which is something I've been slow to do. But I did a video a short while ago. It's about 18 minutes long, and it's called Obfuscation, Distorting Trump. Morton says, no worries, Chris. It's good to learn what's going on around the world. It's called general knowledge. Yeah, absolutely. The Politburo still allows smokes and booze to be sold. Listen here, von Janse van Rensburg. You can buy all the alcohol you want if you're a Christian or non-Muslim living in the Sudan. Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. The Sudan, where Sharia law is the order of the day since the early 1980s, has now lifted the prohibition on the consumption, importation, sale of alcohol for non-Muslims. So if you're a Muslim in the Sudan, you still can't drink alcohol, but if you're a Christian or an animist or whatever, a Wiccan, and you're in Sudan, you can now drink alcohol and without any fears. Now, you can't drink with Muslims. If Muslims are present, you can't have it apparently, but you can drink alcohol, along with a raft of other fascist laws that oppressed the residents, the citizens of Sudan. Many have been lifted. For instance, young women, or not young women, women in general, were not allowed to travel with their own children anywhere without an adult male's permission. So you had to have a letter from an uncle, a father, a brother, a spouse, saying you could travel with your children. Whatever the reason for that law, I don't know, other than perhaps they fear that women will steal their children or abduct them. But that law has been rescinded, as well as now there's a law to ban female genital mutilation in Sudan. Yay, thank you for that. I've been part of a campaign here in the U.S., one of the few times I get involved in campaigns to end female genital mutilation, a cultural practice which is wrongly attributed to Islam. It has nothing to do with Islam. It's a cultural practice, and it's not even widespread. It's in pockets. So you see this sort of barbaric behavior taking place in Niger, in Mali, in Nigeria, in Yemen, in Sudan, Somalia, places like this. And you see immigrants from those places going to other parts of the world, like in Europe, particularly the United Kingdom, the United States, where they continue to practice this barbaric cultural practice. And whenever caught or questioned for it, all too often they fall back and say, freedom of religion. Freedom, it has nothing to do with religion, ladies and gentlemen. It's a cultural practice meant to subjugate girls and women. And that's what it does. And it's quite brutal, quite brutal. It's nasty. It affects these women their entire lives. It's a shameful thing, and some actually die from the way it's done, using razor blades and such. I don't want to get into it, but anyway. So Sudan is changing its laws. That's some good development. Yeah, Erica says fantastic news. It is fantastic news. Morton says, I even hear Saudis lift up, but I heard that was going to happen in Saudi Arabia. I don't know. Errol can't hear. Why can't you hear? My volume is way up, man. Nobody's complained about the volume until now. You might want to check the volume on your device, whether it's your phone or something else. But yeah, it is fantastic news. Editors, what do any of the viewers like to chat about? Oh, yeah. If you've got something, bring it out. You guys want to talk about something, let me know, because it looks like Evans might not be coming back. We've lost him, and that's okay. Errol says, prepare yourselves. A time of joblessness, hunger, and violations of the most basic tenets of humanity by governments is at hand. Well, it's not just governments, Errol. Here in the United States, we have brown shirt fascists roaming the streets and attacking Catholics for praying at a monument. We have Catholic Americans praying and being assaulted by roving thugs. We see people driving through the streets of New York where the mayor of New York has basically stopped law enforcement from enforcing the law. As a consequence, we have people on the streets of New York that are raping, pillaging, shooting people in broad daylight. You see the video of this sad situation where the man is walking with his 7-year-old daughter through a crosswalk, and they pull up in a car driving through the intersection, reach out the window, and shoot and murder the man with his 7-year-old daughter present. And the police don't respond. The Catholics I was talking about, people call the police a dozen times and they refuse to respond. And then you see people stand up with their constitutional rights to defend their homes and their property and their lives, and now being persecuted by venal, disgusting, vile leftist district attorneys who got in office with massive amounts of money poured in by George Soros. I'm talking about in St. Louis, where the couple stepped out of their incredibly opulent mansion there in St. Louis when people broke through the gate and entered their property and menaced them. So they walked out of their house with weapons and told people to leave. They didn't shoot anybody. They didn't attack anybody. They didn't damage any property. They were on their own property, minding their own business when their home was invaded. The police did not respond when they called the police repeatedly. So eventually they had to defend themselves. And now they're being prosecuted. The gentleman's about, I don't know if he's been indicted yet, but he's been told he's going to be indicted by the district attorney's office. This is disgusting. This is vile. It's not just governments that are abusing people. It's thugs in the streets. And the fact that the governments refuse to enforce the rule of law, it makes me think I'm in Zimbabwe. It's sad. It's shameful. The problem is, when Zimbabwe gets oppressed, 2.5 million Zimbabweans can move next door to South Africa. It's not ideal, but they can go there. Another 1.5 million can go to the UK, US, and other places around the world. But where do the rest of us go when this happens? There's nowhere to go if you're in America. Nowhere to go. You're kind of screwed. I'd like to know why your president is restricted to 2 terms and yet senator and congressman. Well, that's a good question, Morton. Okay, so let me explain that. So, for instance, here in the U.S., under the Constitution, when the Constitution was first written, there were no limits on the president. You could be president as many times as you could get elected. But what happened is that we saw with Roosevelt during the 1930s, during the Great Depression, which he prolonged by at least a decade through his useless, idiotic policies, his make-work policies, which undermined enterprise and business and prevented business from resurrecting itself by distracting and taking resources out of the economy and wasting it. So, but because of the patronage of the Roosevelt administration, he was able to hoodwink millions of voters into thinking he was a messiah. And so he ran for office and his opponents weren't particularly effective. And he was elected 4 times, ladies and gentlemen, 4 times. Had he lived, he would have served 16 years as president. Because of that, and the disdain for that, and the aftermath, people realizing what damage it did to this country, and that we are not a monarchy, and we're not a tin pot banana republic that has a dictator elected to office but stays in office forever, we passed a constitutional amendment which limited the president to 2 terms of 8 years. 2 elected terms. That's correct. So that's all you can serve. That's why we have it. Senators and congressmen are not limited because there was no term limits put on them from the outset in the Constitution. The intent, the desire was for members of the Congress and Senate to be citizens, successful business people, farmers, educators, business people, and then go into government and then return to civil society. And I think the perfect example of this is Davy Crockett. Davy Crockett was a successful frontiersman, a successful businessman, a farmer, and an explorer, a scout, and then got elected to go to Congress. He went to Congress. He served a few terms in Congress. Then he went back to Tennessee, and then he was hot full of everything. And so he went to Texas. And of course, he died in Texas. But Davy Crockett is an example of the citizen politician that we hoped to have in this country, not people like Nancy Pelosi and Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders, by the way, has never had a single job. He didn't get elected to become mayor of Burlington, Vermont, until he was in his 40s, I think it was. And he never had a single job prior to that where he actually had a paycheck or ran a business or earned a paycheck, either washing dishes or selling things as a clerk in a store. Never did anything. He just lived off other people as a sponge. And then he got elected to office, and he's been sponging off of Vermont and the United States ever since then. This man who praises socialism and knows nothing about the world. He's just a typical deadbeat, Bernie Sanders. And he has millions of people who love the guy and think he has great ideas. They're morons. They don't have the capacity to think for themselves. It's just really, really sad. Anyway, that's why we don't have term limitations on Congress. There is effort, there's desire by many people in this country to have term limitations. Quite frankly, I'm not a fan of term limitations because if you have a legislator who is brilliant, who knows what they're doing, why can't they continue? But if they were going to have limitations, this is the term limitation I would come up with. You could be elected to the Senate 2 times, and that's it. Or maybe 3 times, because that term is 6 years. So you go in, you spend 1, 2, or 3 terms, 18 years max as a senator. That's it. But I would go with 2 terms, 12 years. And for the House of Representatives, I would say that you're allowed to have 4 or 5 terms. That would give you 8 to 10 years. That's it. Now, you could be a member of the House for 4 terms, 8 years, go into the Senate for 12 years. There you go. That's 20 years in government. That's enough, ladies and gentlemen. We don't need fossils like Strom Thurmond being in office till they're 100 years old, or people like Nancy Pelosi, who, by the way, has never done anything useful, and she's amassed a huge fortune. Now, how does she do that as a member of the House of Representatives with a limited salary? Now, it's a good salary, but it's not a salary that, $100-some thousand per year, $200,000 a year, that over the course of 30 years that you're going to amass tens of millions of dollars of wealth. Yet somehow, Nancy Pelosi has tens of millions of dollars of wealth, and she's not alone. Maxine Waters, she's incredibly wealthy. She has 3 or 4 houses out there in California where she lives. She's never done anything in 3 decades except being in Congress. Yeah, she did. She taught before and things like that, but she never had a job in business or the investing world where she would make a fortune and have all that. So yeah, what's going on there? So actually, when it comes to term limits, I'm not entirely on board with it, but I wouldn't object to term limits for members of the House and the Senate. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, when our country started, the voters did not vote for members of the Senate. That was part of the protections put in place along with the Electoral College and having the fact that we had a bicameral legislature with a House and a Senate, and the Senate was the senior body in the legislature, not the House. The reason we did that was to protect the states, because this is a union of states, not a union of peoples. We didn't come together as a peoples because we are a people. Well, except for some of these leftists. But we are a people. So we came together as a union of states, and 3/4 of the states had to ratify the Constitution in order for it to become the law of the land. Not 22 African states out of 54 to get the African Continental Free Trade Agreement put in place. That's a true story. 22 out of 54 states to put that into effect. But in the United States, it took 9 of the 13 original states before it would become the law of the land. So until that was ratified by 9 states, the Constitution was not in effect. We still had the Articles of Confederation. So there you go. But we didn't vote for senators initially. The senators were selected by the state legislatures. Now, we voted for the members of the legislature, but the legislatures would select who became senators. So for over the first century of our history in this country, not until the 20th century, did we change that with a constitutional amendment in which voters directly voted for senators. So Mitch McConnell and Tammy Duckworth are now voted for by the people. But 100 years ago, well, 120 years ago now, they were voted for by their state legislatures. Now, the reason they changed that is because they saw that parties could distort the system very badly, because if you control, so for instance, with 30 states controlled by Republicans and those legislatures controlled by Republicans, you would have 2/3 of the Senate right now would be all Republicans because they would pick 2 senators from 30 states. That would give you 60 Republicans minimum if the legislatures picked it. So you can see how that potentially in the divisive party system we have now, how that could be a real problem. So they changed it, and now we vote directly for senators. But that was not the norm when the country was first formed. That's something that came along later. So anyway, there you go. Let me see what else. I want you to check on the status of my video I did and see if anybody's watching it. Oh, 85 people watched it. 21 likes. The obfuscation, distortion of Trump. Well, thank you for that. Let me get back to the chat here. What's going on here? Copy, paste on that. Oh. Errol says it doesn't make sense to have lockdowns, restrictions for a virus that only affects less than 1% of the population, has 99%. No, it doesn't, Errol, and that's one of the reasons why I'm not exactly the only person, I and many others have been railing about this hysteria for the whole time. First off, we were lied to. Now, I'll accept that they didn't know better, but now, in retrospect, I doubt that's even the case. I actually think they did know better, and they've lied to us based on how we've seen events unfold. We were told in January by the World Health Organization and Dr. Tedros, the man who covered up cholera multiple times in Ethiopia when he's the health minister. Dr. Tedros and the Chinese Communist Party told us even in late January that you couldn't transmit this virus human-human. Well, that was an outright lie. They knew that. But more importantly, they told us to scare the world that the virus had a fatality rate of 3.2 to 3.4%. Now, for the rubes out there that don't know anything about pandemics or epidemiology, now that's not necessarily the rubes, that's just the general public. But the general public, and then the rubes will believe whatever they're told. That's what I'm talking about. That worked. People are terrified. I walk around here and I see people crossing the street. Oh my God, if you don't have a mask on, they're 100 meters away like you're going to sneeze 100 meters. Anyway, they've convinced and terrified people that they're going to die. It's the plague. It's the bubonic plague. It's the Black Plague. It's 1349, and a ship has arrived from the Crimea, and it's brought the plague to southern Europe, and now it's going all over, and it's going to kill 1/3 of the population. 75 million people died from the Black Plague from 1349 to 1350 into 1350. 75 million people, ladies and gentlemen. We've got 500,000 people, I think, that have been attributed to this having died in the course of 8 months. 500,000. In a world with 9 billion people. Europe didn't have 800 million people in 1349, yet it lost 75%. It lost 200 million people. It lost 75 million people. 1 out of 3 people died from this in horrible, gruesome fashion, too. And you could see it everywhere. It was real scary. Yeah, so we were lied to get people incensed and fearful of this. In fact, we found out that the actual fatality rate is 0.1 to 0.25%. Now, I'm not downplaying this virus, and anyone that thinks I am is not paying attention. And I'm not downplaying that it's highly infectious. It is. I'm not saying it's not. People pick and choose what they want to listen to. What I'm telling you all is that we were lied to, and it was done intentionally. It seems it was done intentionally to scare people so that governments could seize control and do what they want with our livelihoods and with our freedoms. We've seen this all over in Pennsylvania, New York, South Africa, Zimbabwe. It's been done all over, and it's taken people's liberty and freedom away, and it's damaged the food supply, it's damaged the social fabric of this planet, and it has caused no end of problems. And the reality, as was mentioned here just a moment ago, is that 0.2% of the people are the ones who die from this, not 3% of the population, which makes a huge difference. If it was 3% of the population, we'd be talking about something like, 300 million people? Is that right? 3% of 9 billion? Is that 300 million people? I don't know, something like that. It would be a lot more than 500,000 people. Anyway, so yeah, it's out of control. And instead of doing the things that we should have done, protecting the most vulnerable, those with underlying immunocompromised issues like type 2 diabetes, hypertension, high blood pressure, asthma, cancer, HIV, people like that, instead of protecting them and focusing our resources on helping them, keep them from getting infected, we've kept the greater population contained. And we've got no herd immunity, and the virus is still propagating, and it will continue to do it at a slow burn or a fast burn, depending on where you're at in the circumstances. Now, they've lost their minds. They've lied to us. They have no credibility, and it's going to lead to civil disorder and revolts. It's just coming, folks. It's coming. Yeah, and the part I was talking about, Errol, is how scary ignorant people can be and how they bow down to this hoax. Well, it's not a hoax, the virus. It's real. People are dying, and it's not a painless way to go. It's sad for those people. But the hoax is the way that this has been portrayed about the whole planet as if the entire world is affected by this in ways that they've misled us. It's just really, really sad. Really, really sad. Yeah, Errol says the pandemic's not about the virus, it's about politics. Yeah, it is about politics. Experiment, see how stupid the common man is. Yeah, well, when I was talking about Rubes, what I was talking about specifically is people not understanding how disease works, and this hysteria over mask, not wearing mask, and convincing people. You have people bullying people. So because they're wearing a mask or not wearing a mask, people who don't even know the efficacy of the mask or what a mask does and never wore a mask before in their life and never experienced it unless they happen to be in the hospital getting a surgery and their surgeon was wearing a mask or a first responder was wearing a mask when they came up on a scene for someone who'd been injured or shot or in a traffic accident. People knowing nothing about this stuff and propagating all sorts of things. Dangerous virus, especially if underlying conditions. Even more dangerous politicians and their hysteria and their lies. Anyway, so there you go. Well, folks, Evans didn't come back. My apologies for that. I've come up on the hour. Rather than just pontificate, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here and invite you to come back for a Stray Voltage stream later this afternoon where we'll talk about news and events and hopefully get a little bit bigger crowd in here to ask questions and talk about things. But thank you all so much. The 17 of you who are here now, I think it's 17, and those who've been here all along, let's see, 17, yeah. We had an audience of about 8 or 9 there for a while, though, so thanks for tuning in. I hope you found it interesting. Evans is an interesting fellow, so apologize for that break, but it's technology, can't control everything. So this has been a special feature with Evans Larbigh, a small-scale commercial farmer from Ghana. Unfortunately, we're cut off. The network cut us off. But you can go back and watch this and catch the first 40 minutes or so in which I discuss things with Evans. And, hey, Yanni. Chris Wyatt, yeah, the president's talking, so everyone's watching that cock. Okay, well, thanks, Johnny. I'll have to go in and watch that myself now so I can rant about Cyril later on. So I will go watch that myself now. Thank you all for tuning in, the few of you who are here. And I really appreciate whether it was just one person listening or it was 1,000 people. I do value everybody being here. And you notice that I didn't change my approach. We just kept doing the program. And then hopefully people find it interesting. Maybe a lot of people watch it after the fact. I'll be back on with Stray Voltage later today at 9:35 South Africa, Botswana time, 3:35 here Eastern Standard Time. God bless, and I will see you guys a little bit later. Stay safe out there and go listen to Cyril.